everyone! As you could probably tell, I'm not Michelle, I'm Jill. Michelle is in Uganda this week at some refugee camps in her capacity as MP and Shadow Immigration Minister. She'll have lots to tell you about next week when she's back. But in the meantime, I'm taking over to tell you about the incredible work Michelle has been doing on the Trans Mountain Pipeline issue. She has a message for you on this issue. Last week, Michelle was fighting for energy sector workers in Calgary at a rally and in the House of Commons. Listen to what she has to say here.
Good morning, Calgary.
Good morning.
First of all, thank you. There are so many people in this country whose livelihoods depend on the energy sector. And as we've been saying the whole time, everybody here just wants to work. But over the last several months, you have raised your voices. You've come out and you've talked about how important it is for us to not only sustainably develop our energy sector, but make sure that our products get the best price in market. And that means having energy infrastructure like pipelines built. So thank you. Thank you to all the organizers with Rally for Resources, with Canada Action. A big round of applause for the movement that has swept this country, and now our voices are finally starting to be heard. So that's the good news. The bad news is the fight is just beginning. Make no mistake, there are years of work ahead of us for a few reasons. First of all, the protests against this pipeline are not going to stop unless federal leadership is exercised in terms of enforcing the rule of law. This group here needs to keep raising their voices to make sure that that happens. The next thing that needs to happen is we need to realize that the announcement that happened yesterday was $4.5 billion of Canadian taxpayer money that we don't have being sent to a Texas company to build pipelines outside of Canada. All that happened yesterday was we bought a 60-year-old pipeline and we gave money to Kinder Morgan so that they could invest in other countries. If we are ever going to see energy infrastructure built in this country, and I'm including Trans Mountain in that, because we don't know how much it's going to cost the Canadian taxpayer. And we've essentially nationalized the energy industry. For us to continue having our products built out years into the future, we need to have a stable political environment in which these projects get built. And that means no carbon tax. That means no changes to the regulatory process midstream so that it scares away investment. No tanker moratoriums. All of these things that Justin Trudeau has done to destabilize investment in this country. And I've got to tell you, spending 4.5, we don't even know, tens of billions of dollars, over $10 billion of taxpayer dollars to build a project that would have seen $7.4 billion of private sector money come into this country is not a win. It is not a victory. So the fight has to continue because we can't accept the fact that the only way in one of the greatest countries in the world, a G7 country, that a major project can get built is if Justin Trudeau goes into more deficit spending to fix his failure. And I refuse to say that this is a victory, but raising your voices is a victory. And that's what we need to celebrate today. We need to celebrate the fact that the voices of the Canadian energy sector are finally starting to be heard in this country, but we cannot let them silence us. We have to make sure that every Canadian from coast to coast understands that Canada produces its energy products in the most sustainable, world-class, environmentally responsible way. We need to make sure that every Canadian and the world understands that when we build a pipeline in Canada, we are displacing the oil of places like Saudi Arabia, like Venezuela, where there are human rights abuses and no regard for environmental standards. This is the fight that we need to continue, and we need to tell our government that it is unacceptable for their poor political choices to chase away billions of dollars in investment and billions of dollars of jobs, billions of jobs. The reality is that I am very concerned that we will never see another pipeline built in this country. I'm not even sure this one will be built. We need to make sure that the voices and the movement that start here, that this is a seed that sprouts and continues to grow in years and years to come. So I want to thank you on behalf of my leader, Andrew Scheer, on behalf of everybody who has been fighting. This is a team effort. And when you speak up, your voices are heard. So, together, let's continue this fight and let's continue to stand up for jobs, prosperity, and a more prosperous Canada.
Speaker, 2.5 years ago, this country saw pipelines being built without a cent of taxpayer dollars going into a socialized, nationalized energy program. Mr. Speaker, Kinder Morgan was prepared to invest billions into the Canadian economy, and that is gone because the Prime Minister politically destabilized the investment climate in Canada. We have no idea how much this pipeline is going to cost to build or how it's going to be built by a man who hasn't successfully managed to do much of anything. Why should the Canadians pay for his failures?
I would ask the member for Don Valley East and others not to be speaking up when someone else has the floor. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we need to call fiction when fiction happens. What did not happen in the last government? There were no pipelines bringing resources to international markets. The reality is we accept a lower price for our natural resources in this country because...
Apparently there's a problem with the interpretation at the moment. Is the interpretation now working? Is it now? It is now working, excuse me. Order. Order. I'm going to have to ask the Honourable Minister to restart.
Mr. Speaker, I was talking about a fictional story from the opposite side of the House. Their fictional story is that they got pipelines done. The reality is not one pipeline to international markets. We know this to be true. The reason for the discount on Canadian resources is because of a lack of access to international markets. It's why the Trans Mountain expansion is so important. It's why we're moving forward to invest in those assets. It's why we're de-risking the project to make sure it gets done for Canadians.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague opposite just said that private companies didn't see a business case for pipelines in Canada. They did during our government, when we didn't have a tanker ban, when we didn't put in place a carbon tax, when we weren't politically vetoing major projects that had already passed major environmental reviews. The reality is there is no business case in Canada for major resource projects because of this Prime Minister and his bad policies. So will this member get up, correct the record, and say there's no business case in Canada for private investment in the energy sector because of them?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the previous government spent 10 years pitting the environment and the economy against each other. They pitted us against each other. It polarized us. That is not who we are. The majority of Canadians support this project. The majority of Canadians understand that we are in a transition to a clean growth economy and that we will not get there overnight, but we will get there. This week is about providing Canadian families with certainty. No political interference should ever get in the way of that. Make no mistake, this investment is in Canada's future. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Political interference that has occurred in the natural resource sectors under this government when they vetoed the Northern Gateway pipeline. It's so rich for them to stay up this to talk about political polarization when we've got everybody in the country united around one thing. We shouldn't have had to spend $4.5 billion to send private investment outside of this country. This government needs to stand up and take accountability for the fact that they are chasing away investment from this country. They will do it for years to come. Why won't this government take responsibility for their failures?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We will take no lessons from the party opposite on how to support a pipeline and actually get one built. Let's be clear, Mr. Speaker. The permit for the Northern Gateway project was quashed by the court because of the absolute failure on the part of the Harper Conservancy.
Order. The Honourable Opposition House Leader has been talking throughout the answer. I'd ask her not to do that, and I'd ask all members on both sides not to speak when someone else has the floor. Order. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said, the permit for the Northern Gateway project was quashed in court because of the absolute failure on the part of the Harper Conservatives to appropriately consult Indigenous peoples. We will take our role in this process very seriously, and we will continue to work with Indigenous communities, municipalities, provinces and territories to ensure that good projects move forward and create good jobs.
Well, you guys heard her. The fight is not over. If we want to see actual jobs created and an actual pipeline built, we need you to put pressure on Justin Trudeau and his Liberal ministers. Michelle is working incredibly hard for you. Don't forget to subscribe to her page and share this video. Thanks for watching.